Hey, what's going on? It's Benjamin Gottlieb. Today, we are turning the mic around again. Joe Ruggiero, yes, my good friend Joe, he's usually the one who's asking the questions, but for this special episode, I get to flip the script again. We're going to talk about a career that spans decades, designing homes, defining taste on television, and also bringing some of that timeless elegance to everyday spaces. Joe's work has been all over TV. His design philosophy has influenced how America thinks about style and comfort and function. But beyond those aesthetics, Joe is still endlessly curious, and that is why this podcast exists. And Joe, I'm so happy to be interviewing you today on your podcast.
Well, you made me what I am.
Hardly.
Or maybe you brought out what I am. But welcome to Inspired and the people who inspire me. And you certainly do inspire me constantly.
Well, I'm so happy that this episode's going to be about me now. Let's talk about all that I've done in my career. No, but Joe, I think for your audience, they remain so interested in what you've done with your career. And I want to ask you, can we start at the heart of design? Why design for you? What was it about that particular lane that was so interesting to you?
Well, I think because my father, when I was in the formative years, high school and college, said, don't go into design. And he was obviously recruiting me to be a part of his own business. And I didn't want it. My brother went into business with my dad. He became a magistrate. And I just didn't want that business. I wanted to do my own thing, and it was design. And, I can remember as a kid rearranging the pillows in my parents' living room. And my mother was very supportive, and my dad was always supportive. And my brother and I were two different people. He was a big sports guy, and I only ran track. I think that's the only thing I really did. I was a big swimmer. I was a lifeguard. But I really wanted design. Don't ask me why.
So would you say that your father's, let's call it, stop sign to your dream of being a designer and in the design world was maybe the extra kick in the butt for you to get into it?
Well, it's very interesting because I didn't realize my dream until I was 60. And, most people are retiring at 60, but that's when it started. And a friend of mine was a producer who did the Mike Douglas show. You're too young to remember it, but it was a very, very hot daytime talk show. And at the end of it, because each day I did a different thing for a celebrity. I did a table setting for June Carter Cash, and it went for Fernando Lamas. I did a cooking demonstration and whatever. At the end of it, he said, I really enjoyed working with you. We've got to work together. And I thought it was the Hollywood no, the
Right.
typical, kiss off. 10 years to the day that we parted, he called me up and he said, Scripps is doing a 24-hour design show. Would you be interested in going to Cincinnati and pitching it? I said, sure. And he walked me through the pitch. We did boards, and he guided me through what I should do and say. And they bought our show for $1 million. It was the first show that launched the network.
It's absolutely incredible. I love that story, and you've told it in different ways a number of times to me. And what I think is so great about that, and I just want to be clear to the audience, this is interior and home design. That's your bread and butter, right?
Right.
Yeah. So do you remember, maybe this was before you got your big break in television, but do you remember the first space that you designed and what it felt like to do that?
Well, yes, I would say that every home I ever purchased, I designed. And my wife supported it. She was like, yeah, that's great. That's a great idea.
So that was your canvas almost, to kind of experiment.
It was. And my uncle said to his wife, my mother's sister, why does Joe always buy the dump on the block? There's like the surface of the moon in the backyard, and I turned it into a lush, beautiful
And
carpet.
it wasn't because of your business acumen that you did
No,
that.
I was working for Ethan Allen at the time. And I started in the CBS. That's where I met my wife. I walked in, saw this ravishing girl, and said, she's going to be my wife. So I've always trusted my gut because we're married 57 years now. I made the right choice. But she was always, no, you can do that. You're going to do it. Don't worry. Be patient. And when I had to yell for help and say, we don't have enough money, you got to go out and work, because she was a beautiful mother and housekeeper. And she went out and became vice president of the Pacific Design Center. So she really learned my business. And then she took over and managed the business, which this shy, retiring woman, you've met her several times, has got
lovely.
great power, great power.
That's so interesting, this this duality, dichotomy between your father and his maybe support, but maybe distaste for your interests, and your wife's unflappable support, and even physically putting herself in a similar space in the field that you're interested in and supporting you in that way. I wonder if you ever think about that at all, about how those two big pillars and people in your life have had these really large impacts on what you ended up doing.
Well, I think you have to follow your dream. And we've talked about this many times. And I have what I call my young geniuses. And I have a business manager now. And he takes care of all our checks and pays the bills and whatever, which is what we needed. And I think that you have a dream, but you've got to be open to how that dream might change. It's sort of like, if you've ever sailed, tacking. You go left, you go right, but you eventually get to where you're headed. And I think that we all go through it. Am I doing the right thing? I think we ask ourselves many times. Could I be doing better? And I think you shouldn't be greedy. I can remember a boss, the man who invented Ethan Allen, and he was ahead of his time. And he said, if you worry about this, he held up $1, you'll get nowhere. But if you do what you love, your rewards will follow. And I think that's what he was saying, because he didn't want to pay me any more than he was paying me.
Well, it sounds good. It sounds good. I mean,
Yeah.
Gosh, some really connecting with what you're saying there, because you're right. I mean, I think it's so easy to get caught up in being, and some people, again, let's be honest, some people don't have a choice. They have to live day to day. They have to live, hand to mouth. But if you have the means to really go after what motivates you, I mean, that, and you have the right support system around you, you got to focus on what gets you up in the morning, right?
That's right. And it may not be exactly what you want, but it's a step to the right direction. And my daughter, who's on a book tour right now, she took 30 years to create this book, which is a masterpiece. And she said to me,
And for our audience who's listening, this is a cooking book that Beth has.
right, called Entertainment 101.
Go ahead and buy it. Okay.
And she's on a tour right now. It was published June 3rd. And she worked hard. People say the apple doesn't fall far, but she's taken it to the next level. She's a perfectionist. And
So maybe there was a hill next to that apple tree and it rolled a lot.
over several big apples. But I've learned a lot from her. She worked for me for 8 years. And she said, I don't know how you're going to take this, but I got to go do my own thing. And I said, bravo, brava. Because I think that that's a great thing. When you get out, when you feel it's time to jump, which you are going through. And I think that many of the kids that I speak to ask me, how did you do it? And I would say, number one is a benefactor. Don't jump out on your own, hoping that, you're going to make it right away. It takes 10 years to be an overnight success. So I don't think you're going about it that way. and I think that's great, because you're a father, you got a mortgage, you got a kid, you got
Hold on, Joe. This interview is about you. Okay, now we're getting into No, but you're right. I think it's certainly scary to follow your dreams, even more so to do them by yourself or on your own. And I want to get back to what I think your audience really, and our listeners here really will be interested in hearing about, is how you brought design to television. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but before you started doing all of this on HGTV, on other networks, there really wasn't this type of programming on television. So help us understand, what was the main thing you had to convince the executives and potentially focus groups or potential audiences about why this would work on TV?
Well, it took a long time. And I did have connections with daytime programming. I did have connections with Cy Newhouse, who was Condé Nast. And I just kept pitching. And they kept saying, great idea, but there wasn't a home show. I think Arlene Francis hosted. But it wasn't really as I saw it. And
that was more like a home, like living and doing show, not an aesthetic show, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I did This Old House and worked with the best of the best. Russ Morash was who made that show. And he really not only produced it, but directed it. And
before you go on, tell us a little bit more about This Old House.
Oh, yeah. It was a way of getting Ethan Allen furniture on the air. And I said, it's great that Bob Vila has, brought us down to the plaster and what have you, but who's going to decorate it? And Russ said to me, you are. And I saw it as a venue to use the Ethan Allen products. And we did the house soup to nuts and the whole thing. And I did 9 of those. Bob would bring it to its ending in terms of construction, and then I would come in and decorate it. And
were you on television explaining what you were doing, or were you just decorating? You were.
No. I was on television and with the guidance of Russ walking me through and this and that. But I always wanted to be a performer. And my father once again said, and don't be a performer. So I got onto television. But I learned a lot on This Old House because there was a time schedule. They had to complete it. It wasn't like a normal construction. And we had to put together the design in one, I guess they stretched it out to a couple of episodes, but we did it in one day. So I had a great crew, and we just made it happen. Drapery, painting, wallpapering.
And they would show in that program the before and after of the home, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, has become such a popular, let's call it, modality of television today. There's all sorts of programs like that.
Right,
But this was one of the first.
Exactly. So let me tell you about my pitching all these people. I went to ABC, I pitched CBS, I pitched NBC. We have the quiz programs right now and the soaps. There's no real room for design, but, good idea, but we're not ready for it. So I think Scripps saw it as a void, and that's why they jumped on it. And, of course, gave birth to the Food Network and Fine Living and what have you. Because there are people, the same people who love the shelter magazines, which are the design magazines, want to see it on TV. And This Old House proved it. So I saw that there was a need for that. And when Scripps came about and started HGTV, it was made for me.
Again, I just love how you've persevered through all of these roadblocks, and you're so modest and humble about it, I think. A father who's supportive of you, but keeps saying maybe this is not the way for you to go. Getting these pitches, people telling you, yeah, great idea, but no, we're going to pass. There is an epidemic, I think, today of fear of failure, people afraid to take big risks. Everything has become very public. When your successes and your failures, they exist now, not just amongst your friend group, but they're on the internet, they're broadcast in a certain way. How did you use your failures as motivation, and what sort of advice might you have for folks who struggle with using failure or no, not right now, as fuel for their future?
That's a very interesting question, because my dad was the embodiment of the power of positive thinking. That man lived through 2 world wars, a depression, had to get many jobs during the depression to support his family.
Is that all?
I'm the youngest of 5. So, he had 5 kids that he was looking at. And my mother did not work. In those days,
Which
they
is
didn't.
common.
But she could have been a designer, an interior designer, a jewelry designer, fashion designer. She had all of that. And my father supported her, but she really should have gone into business. She could have been very successful. But that's okay, because a lot of my children live in the shoes that she created. Pardon the pun. But, it's very interesting because
Joe,
I
it's your
see...
show. You can pun all you'd like.
and punt. But no, you've got great questions. And, it's just follow your dream. Tennyson used to say, follow your gleam. And it's so true, because if you lose track of where you want to go, and maybe you don't know, that's what I think is so great about interns. They are able to experience. In my day, we would apply for a job, and they said, what experience do you have? Well, I don't have any experience, but, I'm eager to learn. Now, today, they can experience. And
Well, and again, I don't mean to push on you, and you're right. This follow your dream, don't give up. Those things, they sound great. They do. I'm going to ask you again, because for many folks, they get stuck. They want to follow their dream, but they have fear. They're fearful, or they're concerned. They maybe lack confidence. The common phrase in the vernacular today is imposter syndrome. Why me? Am I good enough? Why would anyone listen to me or take my advice or let me be a tastemaker in this field? Is there a special sauce besides just persevering? I mean, like in your hardest moments, in your darkest moments, when you're like, I can't do this. This is my third pitch. I've struck out. How did you wake up the next morning and keep going?
Well, it's just like running a mile, I mean, if you're athletic, you keep going. But I just felt that my father's advice, every boost is, or every nudge, or every time someone tries to trip you up, is a boost. And I agree. It makes you feel better. And I must say, a good partner is what you need. And I give it three things, because I'm asked many times by young guys, what's it like to keep a marriage going? And I said, you got to marry your best friend. You got to have the same religion, and you have to have the same feeling about politics. And it will all follow. Now, that's not always easy. It's not always easy. And I've seen very, very happy couples that have different political beliefs.
Is that the order of things? Is it best friend,
No.
religion, and then
Well,
politics?
best friend is number one.
I think, yeah.
Best friend is number one. And you need someone that mutually supports you, and you need to give that support back. But in my day, the man was the king of, and there's that old Jackie Gleason thing. You're king, big deal, king of nothing. Because he used to say, Alice, you're nothing and I'm king.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in or you've forgotten what is going on today, I'm Benjamin Gottlieb. I'm chatting with Joe Ruggiero. This is Joe Ruggiero Inspired. And yes, the tables have turned today again as we take some of Joe's advice from his career in television and in design. Joe, let's pivot a little bit and talk about how your own personal style has evolved over the years. People change as we age, we gain experience, and our tastes change. What we like, what we don't like. I'd love to hear, maybe from an aesthetic point of view, how your own personal taste has changed over the years.
I've always believed in the classics. And it's funny, because if I have spent $10,000 on the furnishings of my home, that would be a lot. Because, you're going to say you're in the business, you get samples and whatever, and I do. But, I'm not beyond picking up a chair that I see on the road and having it reupholstered. I'm a believer of let nothing go to waste. I don't need a lot. I am not a greedy person. I probably could have done much more for myself and for my business had I been, but it didn't interest me. What interested me was achievement. I wanted to achieve. And I guess most immigrant children feel that way, especially Italians. We were put down. And that's when I say, those who are downtrodden or those who have given up, don't. Because when I worked for an ad agency, Immediately, they thought because of my last name, I would want to be in the art department or, creative.
Oh, interesting.
And I was the first really product kind of guy that worked on the client side ever. And that was many years ago, early 60s.
So in other words, you would say your style hasn't changed because you've been so connected to the
I would
classics.
say it hasn't. I would say that the opportunity to have many homes, which I have throughout the United States, has given me the blank canvas to create. But then once I walk away from it, I don't feel I need bigger, better. I just always look for an interest or for something to work on because I love gardening. I love, rearranging. And I I should have been an architect, but I didn't have the arithmetic or the math.
You've had some incredible guests on this show, and I want to talk a little bit more about this podcast in general because it's become such a, let's call it vessel for you to express and to show your pillars of interest and thought. What made you want to start a program like this? And what itch is this scratching for you?
Well, your grandfather is my best friend, and he's a very kind and generous man. And when he put me in touch with you, because I didn't know anything about podcasting, I just knew I would like to do it. But I would like it to be an inspiration. That's why I called it Inspired, and the people who inspire me. I'm still curious. I'm that curious kid on the block. I'm really interested in what other people think. I'm not interested in bragging about what I've done, but I'm interested in learning. I'm always learning. And I think that I'll go down in history as the learner, or something. But I would like it to be learning because I'm interested in people. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But I like to find out what makes them tick, what made them successful, because that's the way you learn. And I have always instilled in my kids, help people, whether it be, financially helping them, which my oldest daughter does, or it's inspiring. I used to end my HGTV show with bringing you inspiration because people do need to be inspired. They need to be pushed a little bit.
Sounds like maybe not architect, but journalist could have been a career for you because,
Maybe.
I mean, that's exactly what a journalist does if done correctly, learning and listening. And it's what you've done so well on this program. What do the next few months and maybe to the end of this year look like for the Joe Ruggiero podcast?
Well, I think because of your guidance, we are broadening. We began with 5 pillars, which was interior design or design, old Hollywood, gardening, food, because of my daughter. Mm-hmm. She really, and I've always loved food anyway. And when I was editor of Home Magazine, we would go into a market and I would say, okay, give me the top restaurants. Give me the top places I should see, And that's what we would do. So now that we're broadening the horizons, we're talking about divorce lawyers and what they feel people can, protect themselves when going through a divorce. He declared, which I thought was very interesting, that most of the divorces that he gets paid for shouldn't have happened if they listened to each other, And I think that that's very true. But I think that we're going to be talking more about the dynamics of people. What makes people tick? And I think that's so interesting. And I think it's interesting to my listeners. I think they've welcomed the broaden, but I don't want it to be negative, and I don't want to hassle over politics or this guy's, I hate him, and all of that kind of stuff. That's not positive for me.
And those things are fickle. They change all the time,
Yeah.
and they can be difficult to mull through. Absolutely. Well, Joe, cannot wait to see what the next few months sound like and look like. I'll be here with you, helping you out. And Joe, thank you so much for sitting with me and for speaking with your audience about your life and what's going on with you in 2025. Thanks, Joe.
I think that we should ask our listeners if they want more of this.
Oh,
If this is helpful to them.
hey, listeners, do you want more of this? Joe's asking. Also, by the way, I should mention before we wrap, if you have not already, please like or subscribe to this podcast. You can be a subscriber wherever you listen to podcasts, on Spotify, on Apple, and also on YouTube. Wherever you get your podcasts, please subscribe to this show. And you know what? If it so inspires you, as Joe has been pitching, leave a review. Let us know what you think. It really goes a long way as we continue to support and make this program all it can be. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you do.